Greetings and salutations, all you fine feathered individuals. It is another epi of League Unlock. My name is Eric Flying Han Solo on today's epi for really what was a couple of individual highlight reel montage series in both the LCK and the LPL. Some big substitutions over in the NACL. That's the North American Challengers League for people who are completely unfamiliar with it, which I'm sure a lot of people are, but we're starting over in that LCK, and the biggest highlight reel montage. Two different guys in this series, really. You could highlight. The first was the obvious one and has been an ongoing theme all split, and that is Zeus proving not only is he worth the extra money that Hanwha Life paid to get him over T1, but he is worth the title of best top laner in the world. And obviously, this dude's been in that conversation for multiple years now, but I think right now it is further away than it ever has been. And by that, I mean nobody is even close to him. There's no real argument against him being the best top laner in the world. First, he had the Jace game, which looked eerily similar to some of the Yone plays he did back in 2022, I think it was, at Worlds, but absolute fancy feet dancing around a Skarner ulti, dodging some Gwen needlework, and surviving with sub triple digit health. He had like 50 health at one point, and this guy's Jace, it makes me a little bit depressed to watch his Jace performance and then see what pretty much anyone in the West, you could throw in NA or EU, looks like on this champion, because Zeus is absolutely just a different animal, as we saw in game 1 and in game 2 today against Nongshim. The Nidalee top for him. I know the Shy's been spamming this. Some other top laners have been pulling it out. Zeus maybe looks the most terrifying on it. He had 4 kills pretty early, and I think at one point he had like a 5k gold lead individually in that top lane matchup, so he was an absolute menace. But not to be outdone, despite Nongshim losing this series, we gotta highlight, we gotta shout out Calyx in the mid lane. The Ahri performance in game 2, single-handedly dragging, kicking and screaming the rest of Nongshim to get back into this game that looked absolutely unwinnable. The guy finished with double-digit kills on that Ahri. Again, matching up against the Zeka that is in absolutely fine form, even on a not a pocket pick, a mainstay pick in the Yone and Calyx. 12, 2, and 10 on this Ahri. This rookie is the real deal. And again, despite Nongshim losing this series 0-2, I feel like Calyx and the rest of the boys proving that this isn't going to be a pushover squad when playoffs roll around in the LCK. They're gonna give some serious pushback against some of these top 3 teams, or even the top 2 when you're talking about Genji and Hanwha Life, who again are very much so separating themselves from the rest of the pack. Calyx he's got a bright future in the LCK and is absolutely deserving of this title of next up-and-coming mid-lane star in the LCK. One of the guys who used to have that title was Bulldog on the DN Freaks, who is not hanging around anymore on this squad, as Pungyon was the one who started today against T1, and it had absolutely no positive effect, because T1, a much needed underhand softball pitch for this squad to get back on track, and get back on track they did against DN Freaks, who are just difficult to watch. It's sad to see a team that legitimately had actual expectations, and when we just finished talking about Nongshim, it felt like the DN Freaks were supposed to be the team in that category as the next squad up to that upper echelon in the LCK, and absolutely has not been the case throughout all of 2025. First eliminated in the LCK Cup, going for the perfect 0-18 run so far in the first couple of rounds of Split 2, and there's just not really many positives to talk about. They've made some substitutions. It does not matter. I hope somebody like Berserker and Piosik, I hope their mental isn't completely boomed after this year. I don't know what you do if you make a full roster move going forward for them, but it is unsalvageable so far in this split. We get another carry performance out of Owner for this one. He picked up player of the match and actually seemed in good spirits afterwards, despite a plethora of whiffed rumble ultis out of Doran in this first game. It was, I mean, there's not really much to go off of here. The DN Freaks are absolutely horrendous right now, and T1 pretty dominant fashion, sub 60 minutes to close out this series. It would have been absolute disaster if they didn't come away with the win or they struggled in a back and forth 3-game set. The Freaks have only won 3 games total, all split. Total, not series, single games. They've only gone to a game 3 separate occasions. So yeah, it would have been a disaster if T1 somehow managed to fumble this one. So they don't. They get back above 500 before a much more important matchup over the weekend. Hopefully, obviously the LCK and LoL eSports as a whole is going to be better if T1 finds themselves back in that contender status. It was more of a turnaround for a Billy Gaming squad that has been mired in a deeper and darker slump than T1 as of late. And of course, the big news, we know Wei has been struggling mightily. Bashuan coming in as a mid-season acquisition for BLG, and he was making his debut against Weibo Gaming, and unfortunately started a bit slow. Game 1 kind of looked a little bit more like the BLG we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks, and that's to be understood. I mean, Bashuan goes 1-7 on the Xinjiao, does not have a very solid performance, but it's his first game, you know, finding the synergies with the squad, and I don't know what happened with the coaching staff, with the boys in between games 1 and 2, because game 2 looked like vintage BLG, and we're talking about absolute dismantling. How about 27 kills to 2? 27-2, and it was only a 25-minute game. Obviously, this game got so out of hand quickly that, I mean, Weibo was basically just waiting to go next, obviously, at a certain point. But Knight had some nice outplays on the Victor, and when Bashuan and On actually got some synergy going early on in the laning phase, BLG wasn't behind the 8-ball. They were in the driver's seat from the very get-go in Game 2, and truthfully, that carried into Game 3. Sticking with this theme we talked about earlier of individual highlight reels, yeah, the Victor game was great out at Night, but we got a proper, vintage Akali performance out of him in Game 3. We're talking solo kills on Breathe, triple kills taking over team fights in back-to-back games. He finishes with 8 kills and goes deathless. Didn't have the assists on the Akali, but what do you need assists for on a snowball champion? But we finally got to see some smiles out of the golden left hand, and similar to Owner having a fun interview, looking happier on T1, BLG and Knight looking happier. Remains to be seen if Bashuan's actually going to be a big change and getting BLG, helping get them back to that contender status in the LPL. But at the very least, in games 2 and 3 especially, it felt like BLG were fully in control. They had that aggressive, confident mojo around them that we've seen over the last couple of years. Even in that third game when Weibo found some picks, looked like they might get an avenue back into the game, it still felt like BLG was in control. They were still maintaining a gold lead, and we saw that combo of just dominant mechanical players, which they have top 3 in most of their roles, and then the more cerebral movements around the map, finding the right objectives, knowing what to do when you do find a pick or when you're the ones getting picked, scavenging your way around the map to still pick up some gold. And that was evident throughout that Game 3 especially, because Game 2 was easy. They snowballed their way through, but when there was pushback in Game 3, we still got that confident, aggressive BLG that we have come to know and love in the LPL. We're getting to know and love a new potential star domestic player in North America. We're talking about over on Near Airport. It was we knew that Doublelift and Biofrost would be subbing out for this week due to some, I think Doublelift said some sponsorship things that he signed many months ago. That's again hilarious that this isn't a professional team per se that we're accustomed to, but we got to see Sushi subbing in for Doublelift. And if you didn't see any of the interviews with him ahead of time, this dude was playing League of Legends when he was 6 years old. I was still ripping Pokemon on the Game Boy at that point, but that's dating yourself at that point. But this guy's been playing for like 12 years. He's a Canadian, so we got to shout him out. But what a debut for him. He had a bad game 2 against Blue Water, but really had a pop-off performance in this third game, and Not a ton of tier 2 or tier 3 experience under his belt, but obviously Double Lift and the Near Airport boys saw something in him to be confident for him to sub in and gets a series win, clinches playoffs for Near Airport. I believe Double Lift will be back next week, but I don't think this is the last we're going to be seeing of Sushi in that bot lane. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets more opportunities from just a single series and, being able to be highlighted on this squad as a potential young player. We know there's one thing that the challenger scene and the domestic scene in NA can do, and that is churn out high-quality AD carries. We're talking Danny, Jan. We've been seeing Masu go way back to some of the early days. I mean, Sneaky, that's going way back. But AD carry is really the main role that we at least have had some confidence in North America. And Sushi might be the next guy to be talking about. So keep an eye on him in the challenger scene and keep an eye on Near Airport, as I mentioned. Clinched a playoff spot in the NACL in their first ever split. We'll continue to monitor how that run goes for Po Belter and the boys. But that is it today for League Unlocked. We got lots of weekend stuff that's going to be going down. Everything's still in full swing. We're not really approaching playoffs yet, but there's still a lot more games to get to and a lot more things to overreact about. But thank you guys so much for hanging out and supporting as always, and you best believe your bottom dollar that we will catch you on that flippity flip.